A bloated and grotesque creature, the Butcher was a sadistic being that relished in the torture and pain of others. It was also masochistic, as its own hands were damaged as a result of its torture. It hunted endlessly for fresh meat. Today we are going to assemble our own Butcher from the Diablo series, so let's get chopping. I'm going to skip a lot of Diablo's lore because the Butcher has a very minor role to play in its franchise's history, and I'd rather go over the extensive history if I ever cover something like the Primevals. And speaking of the Primevals, the Butcher is actually not the only one of its kind. The Butcher belongs to a species of demon known as Butcher Demons. The Butcher Demons were once servants of Diablo himself that were created by sewing together mismatched pieces of other demons and imbuing this mess of body parts with dark magic. Butcher Demons are very strong, and they gain the combined strength from all the types of demons that were used to create it. Demons in Diablo and demons in D&D and the Forgotten Realms share some similarities, such as some demons are resistant or downright immune to fire. They are very tough and hard to kill. They use torture weapons or massive objects to murder their prey, and they love to eat any poor adventurers they stumble across. The Butcher we are talking about today is one that was created by a scorpion witch named Andriel. In Diablo 1, he kinda just walks in a straight line and swings an axe kinda fast until you die. But in Diablo 3, after he is resurrected, we fight the Butcher as the end boss to the first chapter. During this fight, we see the Butcher use a lot of different and unique attacks, such as charging very fast, using a giant hook to pull you into melee range with him, stunning you on top of his fire traps, and shooting out a cone of chains. During the events of Diablo 1, it is stated that attacks from the Butcher's weapons were almost instantly infected, and the town healer was almost incapable of healing these infections. And besides his famous line of fresh meat, I've pretty much mentioned all important details about this muscular abomination, so let's get into how to make a Butcher out of D&D 5th edition monsters. The Butcher is a large chaotic evil fiend, and possibly an undead or a construct. I'm unsure on how to classify something that was given original life from other beings' body parts, so I'm going to leave his creature type up to interpretation. I decided to design the stat block from the ground up because it seemed a lot easier than trying to rework a random fiend's. His strength and constitution should be his highest stats because his size and how hard he can give and take hits. His intelligence should always be his lowest stat because he willingly runs full speed into walls. He doesn't have a super high AC, but he makes up for it with his medium HP, resistances, and crowd control effects we will go over later. I've made him immune to fire and poison just like most D&D demons, and I've given him resistance to necrotic damage because he was created and resurrected by dark magic. I tried to find as many pre-existing abilities and attacks as possible, and surprisingly, I only had to homebrew a few. The Butcher is very strong, so I decided to make it realistic, and on top of his massive strength stat, I wanted him to have advantage on flexing those demon muscles. I stole the immutable form ability from the Flesh Golem because he was created by whatever demon parts was laying around at the time, and being able to polymorph the dungeon boss makes a DM sad. We have taken the charge ability and reckless ability from the Minotaur because the Butcher runs and slams into people and walls without regards for his own safety. I mentioned earlier how people he cut with his cleaver got terrible infections and some even lost limbs. Well, I've decided to add a disease to the edges of this weapon that will make the Butcher even harder to fight. This ability is completely optional because I haven't tested it against a raid party yet, but if they fail saving throws after getting hit with one of his weapons, they have disadvantage on all their physical saving throws until they are healed of this effect. If you decide to use this in your own games, some balance options are that you could have them repeat the saving throw every turn until they overcome it, or once it's healed or they have successfully beaten the saving throw, you could make them immune to the disease for 24 hours. Moving on to his attacks, I think that 2d12s per hit with his Great Cleaver is pretty balanced considering he can get advantage on any of the attacks he really wants to hit, and his maximum damage of 72 with his Cleaver in one round on a non-critical roll means he won't be dealing that much damage. He got the Whip ability from the Balor, so we don't have to homebrew a hook and pull ability, but I added a special condition to his Great Cleaver that gives him the chance to stun his victims as long as he has successfully pulled them and landed an attack. His slam attack is pretty standard, and it's essentially just an anger-infused chest bump. Moving to his legendary actions, giving him 1 to 3 axe attacks makes him a bit of a better fighter against the party's fighter and a barbarian. I chose not to give him his hook attack as a legendary action because it seems unfair and unbalanced when coming to his next legendary action, his Circle of Flames ability. This ability is a cheap knockoff of one of the adult Red Dragon's lair actions. This ability punishes the surround and pound tactic and forces the party to strategize and position better. This ability paired with a good pull and stun can be quite deadly to a squishy target, and maybe use it on the tank first so you can see the fear in the spellcaster's eyes. And with that, I think that about wraps it up. This creature was actually pretty easy to sew together and sounds like a lot of fun to throw at an unsuspecting group of adventurers. Let me know what you guys think, and tell me if you decide to use this agent of hell against your players. Till next time, that Mage, signing off.